This video is to help you with the concepts from 3.2.1, working with subtraction of integers. In Chapter 2, you worked with adding and multiplying integers, positive and negative whole numbers and zeros. In this lesson, we're going to work with positive and negative tiles to learn about subtraction of integers. So what they're saying, first of all, is if you had this assortment of positive and negative tiles, what integer would this represent? So again, the easiest way to do that is to create your zero pairs, call them zero sandwiches, and then see what value is remaining after you've made as many of those as you can, which is -2. And then it says, what if you go back to the original? All right, but you now remove 3 positive tiles. Okay, so I'm going to try to black out, or so to speak, 3 of these positive tiles so that we don't have them anymore. In fact, it may be better if I just covered them with a white space or something like that, but we're going to assume that these no longer are in the collection. Okay, so I'm trying to get rid of those, make them so I don't see them. Okay, well, we knew the original value was -2. We just had that. Okay, and if we get rid of these 3 positives, now we're not able to make as many zero sandwiches as we were before. Instead, we can only make this 1 zero sandwich. So if we get rid of 3 positive tiles, like we did, what we're left with for a value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we started with -2 for a value. We got rid of 3 positive tiles. All right, and now when we make our zero sandwiches, we're only left with a value of -5. Another way to have shown this, maybe that would have made it a little easier to understand, is instead of blacking out, maybe I should have lassoed them. All right, it initially had a value of -2. I'm taking away 3 positives. I didn't put a positive sign in front of the 3 because we assume that it's positive if we don't see a sign, but you could have. You could have made this -2 plus minus plus +3. Again, you then would still make your zero sandwiches with anything that remains. And then, like we said, there's a value of -5 remaining. Okay. Now they're saying, what if you started again with the same original value, which was -2, but this time we're going to remove 3 negative tiles. So I'm going to lasso and remove 3 negative tiles. Okay, so I've got -2 minus -3. Now I oftentimes put my -3 in parentheses like that because otherwise it looks a little strange to have subtraction of a negative when it's minus. It looks like minus minus if I don't have a parentheses. It's not wrong to not have the parentheses. I just think it helps distinguish it a little bit easier. So I've got -2. I'm taking away -3. Again, I'm going to make zero sandwiches with whatever I can that remains. So here's 1, here's 1, and here's 1. And so I'm left with just a value of +1. So again, it might seem a little strange. -2 minus -3 equals a +1, but that's where using the diagram helps make some greater sense out of it. All right, so that's what you're doing on 325 as well. If you start with this, all right, and then you do this, they want you to create representations for that. So they're giving you the diagram, they're showing what's happening, and we need to create an expression for that and an answer. Well, initially we can tell from this original picture, got 2 zero sandwiches here, that we had a value of +8. Okay, then we can see from the picture that they took away 2 negatives, so subtracted 2 negatives. Again, I like to do parentheses around the -2. And if they're going to do that, then I can't make any zero sandwiches. So what remains for me is a value of +10. Now they talk about, could you come up with a situation where you describe that in words? All right. It's kind of tough to visualize this in a real life situation, but maybe you could think of it like, I have $8 and now I owed $2 because negative would be like owing money. But my mom said, don't worry about that $2 that you owe us. We're basically going to wipe that off of your debt So I have $8. I have $2 that I owed being taken away. Now it's like I'm actually at 10. I've gained ground. I've improved. All right. Or maybe you could think of this like I have, let's see, I'm trying to think what else. 8. What else can we think of where we could take away the negatives? All right, maybe I have 8 great qualities about myself, and I'm going to work on it and take away 2 of my more negative qualities. So now I'm actually like I'm at 10 qualities, 10 positive qualities about myself. All right. So you're trying to kind of come up with a situation. That's why I didn't make you describe that in words, because that is kind of a tough thing to do. For B, -8 minus -3. So this time they're giving us the expression. So we need to make a picture for it and come up with a value. So I started with this picture of -8. So I had 8 negative signs here. I'm taking away 3 negatives. So I'm circling or lassoing that, taking those away, and then seeing what remains. All right, and what remains is -5. For C, this time they are giving you a situation, one that works a little better though, which is temperature. So it's cold. The first time I looked at the thermometer today, it said it was 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it dropped 5 degrees. How cold is it now? So what I did is I did this one as a diagram on a number line. You were allowed to use a number line or positive and negative tiles, whatever works best for you. So I started with 0. I went back 5 degrees. I dropped 5 degrees. Now I'm at -5. Okay, so 0 minus 5 degrees put me at -5. All right, and then for 326, they want you to build these expressions. Again, probably the best way to do it is with the positive and negative tiles. Think about how to subtract and then try to figure out how to draw those and record the results. Now, some of these are trickier than others. So let me see if I can find one for you that's going to be somewhat challenging. Let's look at D. All right, so for D, I have 3 positives and I have to take away 4 negatives. So hopefully you can see the challenge there. How do I take away 4 negatives when I don't even have any negatives in my diagram? Well, just like you can subtract away 0 sandwiches, you can also add or put in 0 sandwiches. Because again, adding or subtracting 0 doesn't change your value. So I'm going to add some 0 pairs or 0 sandwiches. All right, I need to add 4 of them because I need to have 4 negatives be part of my picture. And again, I haven't changed my value. My total value here would still be +3. But now I can take away my 4 negatives. Okay. So again, I had 3 positives. I added 4 0 sandwiches. I'm taking away my 4 negatives now. And now what remains is going to be a total value of 7. So when I circle or lasso these and take them away, I'm left with a total value of 7. Same concept for F here. I'm starting with -1. They want me to take away 9 negatives. Well, I can't take away 9 negatives, excuse me, if I only have 1 negative, but I can add 8 0 sandwiches. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, those need to be 0 sandwiches so that I don't change my initial value. Tell my drawings are not too well done, so I certainly won't criticize you for yours. So I now still have a value of just -1 in my picture, but now I have the ability to take away 9 negatives. So I can lasso and take away all my negatives, which is 9 of them, and then see what remains from my value. Okay. They also remind you that you can show subtraction on a number line model. So if you wanted to show 2 minus 7, you can do that on a number line. Start with your 2, going back 7 units. All right, and then again, it is trickier though to do something like this. If I have 1 minus a -2, we have to remember again that this means opposite of. So you can think of this as 1 and then adding the opposite of -2 or adding +2. All right. For 328, they talk about the idea of when you see positive and negative numbers in terms of above and below sea level. So if sea level is 0, and we're talking about a distance below sea level, then we would write it as a negative. All right, and then they've got an even deeper point in the Pacific Ocean, which is even further below sea level, so it's even more negative. So then if you wanted to find the difference between those two depths, okay, you could think of it as taking one depth and subtracting the other. But again, that's like subtracting a negative, all right? So the idea is, how could you figure out that value? Thinking about distance, thinking about absolute value. All right, and then 329 also again reminds you of the idea of absolute value. It's the distance again between a number and 0, but it could also be thought of as the distance between two non-zero numbers. So if you had 8.6 and 3.4, what's the absolute value between them? Well, you would subtract, but you put absolute values bars behind it, or around it, I should say, because we care about the distance between them, not the direction. Same thing here. But if we wanted the absolute value between -6 and 7200ths and 4 and 1300ths, you could find the difference between them, but you could also do absolute value. Or you could think of the distance from -6 and 7200ths to 0, the distance then from 0 to 4 and 1300ths, and combine them. So 330 is extra credit, talking more about the idea of absolute value and difference between points. But these are a little more complicated in that we've got fractions and decimals. And then 331 is also the idea of extra credit, thinking about Cecil on a tightrope with regard to the idea of adding and subtracting integers. And 332 is also extra credit. This time you're adding parentheses so that the left side equals the right side. So 1 minus 3 minus 5 minus 7 doesn't equal 0, but where can I put parentheses so that it would? Again, those are extra credit for those of you that want to challenge yourself. Don't forget, you should look over your methods and meanings. This is the idea of evaluating, which means find the value of an algebraic expression. So if you have, 4x minus 3y plus 7, and you know that x equals 2 and y equals 1, you're going to use substitution. You're going to replace x with 2, replace y with 1, and find its value. And they give you a very nice example of that. So look all that over prior to working on your homework.